Hello, good morning, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of Politics at Jack and Sam's Daily, the podcast that gives you everything you need to know about the day ahead in British politics and in Elon Musk's life in under 20 minutes.
It's Tuesday, January the 7th, 2025. My name is Sam Cates from Sky News, and with me is Jack Blanchard from Politico. And my goodness, what a mess. All over the world, the looming inauguration on Monday, January the 20th of Donald Trump, the return of him and his friends in 2 weeks yesterday, is shaking up global politics. Yesterday, Justin Trudeau, the Liberal Canadian Prime Minister, resigned in part over his relationship with Donald Trump. And all across Europe, there's a tortured debate on how to handle the biggest finger that we've all been talking about for a few days, Elon Musk. Not least across Europe, because controversially, he's holding a virtual event with the leader of the extreme right German AfD party, Alex Wiedel, on Thursday.
Frustration boiled over on this in Europe yesterday. President Macron in France suggesting that Elon Musk was attempting to intervene directly in elections. We heard from the Norwegian Prime Minister complaining about this as well. And of course, Sam, we heard from Keir Starmer at that press conference yesterday morning, hitting back at Elon Musk, saying that a line had been crossed. We were speculating yesterday morning whether Keir Starmer would end up spending half the day talking about Elon Musk, and so it came to pass.
One of the most impassioned responses from Keir Starmer. He's put a big stake down in the ground in that speech. But I suppose the question is, Jack, will any of this hold back the tide? And you have to say probably not. Not least looking at Elon Musk's Twitter feed overnight. The only person who really can rein in Elon Musk, I suppose, is Donald Trump himself. And we'll get into that in a bit, whether there's any sign the US president-elect is tiring of the person he's now having to share the limelight with. Meanwhile, and it's not a badge of honour, this, I have to stress, but just in case the Liberal Democrats were feeling left out alongside the Labour leader and the Reform leader, the good news is that they're not missing out either now, because a little after 1 a.m. UK time, Musk went for Ed Davey as well in a X post, calling for him to be ousted at the next election for not doing enough about grooming gangs. So I think that's pretty much everything on your bingo card for British politics there from Elon Musk.
There you go, a full house. There are things that are going on in British politics today that are not to do with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. There's a crackdown happening on deepfake porn. There's Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, is up for the first time before a select committee to talk about housing. That will be very interesting. The government is setting up what it's calling a Steel Council, and that's just before Rachel Reeves goes to China this Friday, of course, when, of course, Chinese steel will be on the agenda. There are loads of things happening that are not Musk-related, but the truth is that the fallout from this grooming gangs conversation, which began a week ago and has been amplified by Elon Musk, is leading all of the headlines today. Just look at the front pages. It is everywhere. Yes. Just look at the broadcasts happening this morning. The Victims Minister is out for the government. Robert Jenrick, the Justice Shadow Justice Secretary, should say, is out for the Tories. And you know that they're going to spend all morning talking about this issue again, all because it's being amplified by the world's richest man on his own social media network.
But if you look at the media coverage, actually, across all the frankly not particularly pleasant and helpful coverage, I think there's one thing that stands out as the most unwelcome of all, because just at the moment, I think the Times plays a pretty critical swing role in things. The government has a bit of a love-hate relationship with them. They courted them massively before the general election, only to be snubbed in terms of an endorsement when it actually came to it. And they have a sort of neuralgic tie to that paper. Well, today, the Times in its leading article has come out in favour of a national inquiry into grooming. That will be unwelcome. It adds a voice alongside the Conservative Party and others who think there need to be yet another inquiry on top of the various inquiries that we've had already, and that they think there should be one as well. So that does ratchet up the pressure even as Keir Starmer took a very clear stand, put his reputation really on the line yesterday that he wasn't going to do exactly that.
It's interesting to see the Tories trying to profit from this, and it'll be interesting to see whether they feel they can successfully do so. There was some suggestion that they're going to try and force a vote on this in the House of Commons tomorrow, Wednesday, on this idea of, as you say, another national public inquiry into child grooming gangs. There is a lot of criticism being thrown the Tories' way, not by Elon Musk, I have to say. I think Kemi Badenoch's the only leader he hasn't called for to either be thrown out of office or thrown out of the country or thrown in jail so far, but maybe it'll be her turn over the next few days. But, the Tories were obviously in power for the last 14 years and are being criticised for not having implemented the recommendations of the last public inquiry into this by Alexis Jay. And I noticed doing the rounds yesterday was that clip of Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister, saying that the money that was spent on inquiries into child sexual abuse was spaffed up the wall, which is not a helpful comment for a former Tory leader to have made in this context. So whether the Tories can actually capitalise on this and the sort of charges that will be thrown at them in terms of hypocrisy and so on when they try to do so remains to be seen. I'm sceptical it's going to work for them. It probably works a lot better for Reform. And that is why, Nigel Farage is very keen to talk about this and trying to find this line that he can walk where he seems like the sort of reasonable one in all of this, with Elon Musk yelling about locking people in prison on one side and others being accused of trying to just play the whole thing down on the other. And maybe he's the one who profits more than anyone else.
The thing about sort of where we've ended up is it's turned into a giant vat of kind of mixed issues. And actually, I think it's probably quite helpful to try and separate out the different elements, the different arms of what we're talking about, because different people leap on different elements of it for their own, frankly, political gain at the moment. And whatever side of this debate you're on, confusing some of the arguments seems to be the name of the game in the House of Commons and beyond. There is part of this which is about how both the Conservative and the Labour government are responding to the last big public inquiry by Alexis Jay, which made a series of recommendations about how to strengthen child sexual exploitation. As you say, the last Tory government, whilst they said they were going to do fulfill some of the recommendations, ended up not doing so because they put, for instance, things that Yvette Cooper promised yesterday about mandatory reporting by professionals of child sexual abuse in a criminal justice bill, but that fell before there was a general election. Because there was a general election, possibly a symptom of the issue not being taken seriously enough. Now Yvette Cooper says that they're going to take forward that recommendation, but there isn't a clear timeline for how everything else is going to be implemented from the Alexis Jay report. And she'll be out and about this morning, I suspect, saying that it's extremely disappointing that even this government haven't been clearer about exactly how they're going to do that. So that's one part of all of this. There's another part where some of the sort of voices in all of this are seeking to try and pin Keir Starmer and responsibility for Keir Starmer as Director of Public Prosecution down back in sort of 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 for failing to do enough when he was Director of Public Prosecutions. I was quite struck that the Times very explicitly clears Keir Starmer of that, saying he actually did quite a lot of good work as Director of Public Prosecutions back then, and say that wasn't the issue. But then there's a third area, and this is an incredibly tricky area. And this is an area where I think the whole politics of this is going to get incredibly nasty, is where different people try to navigate the issue of race and link that to what is going on at the moment. Again, coming back to the Times leader, because it's quite a useful frame, it very specifically makes the allegation that Jess Phillips may be effectively compromised when deciding not to hold another national inquiry into grooming because of the large ethnic minority population in her constituency, which I think is something that will be utterly rejected by people in the Labour Party and seen as quite divisive. But at the same time, I think you are hearing voices inside the Conservative Party, most notably Robert Jenrick, who are keen to lean into arguments like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it is something you've heard in the past said about Labour politicians, sort of those accusations have tended to be more private ones than public ones. They're now becoming public ones. As you say, it's something that Labour will reject, but it's certainly something that you've heard repeatedly over the years if you've been in Westminster. And it's something that Labour are probably going to have to confront now in one way or another, because it is something that is clearly going to be thrown at them more and more openly. I think the other interesting issue about this, as you sort of mentioned at the start, Sam, is that it feels to me that this is just the start of something much bigger. What Elon Musk has done over the past week or so, he's really absolutely driven the political conversation in the UK between him and his social media platform anyway. And we saw, Yvette Cooper in the House of Commons last night, the Home Secretary, making announcements, policy announcements on this issue that he has been shouting about. Donald Trump isn't even in power yet. Donald Trump is 13 days away from being in power. And Elon Musk isn't even that important a member of his administration. He doesn't have a big cabinet job. He's got this sort of semi-fake advisory job. And yet, here he is driving the conversation and actually potentially driving policy change here in the UK already. This is just the beginning of it. Just wait until Donald Trump is in power. Just wait until Elon Musk is not the only figure in and around that administration, shouting and making noise about certain things and driving the conversation. And this is something that Keir Starmer and the Labour government are now going to have to get used to. This is going to be the backdrop in one form or another. And I'm not just talking about this particular issue over grooming. I'm talking about just about anything that happens to be on their minds. This is going to be the backdrop to how Keir Starmer is going to proceed for the rest of this Parliament. This is what happened to Theresa May when she was Prime Minister, and you'll remember it well, Sam, because we were obviously covering that government, both of us, very closely at that time, is that it was then mainly Donald Trump doing it on his Twitter feed, but he would just make interventions all the time, extremely noisy, extremely vocal ones on all sorts of issues, whatever he happened to be watching telly about at midnight, and that would completely change the political dynamic in the UK the next day, and we'd all be talking about that, and we'd all be talking about what the US government thought about a certain issue. And obviously Trump would do it in a way that we'd never seen from an United States president before. And now we have other people within Trump's administration, i.e. Elon Musk, who are keen to do that in an even more extreme way than Donald Trump was. And whoever is Prime Minister is going to find that very difficult to deal with. And for Keir Starmer, what he had to deal with at that press conference yesterday, I think is just the start of how things are going to proceed for him now that Donald Trump has won this election, and now we're starting to see the reality of what that is going to look like.
It almost feels to me like Donald Trump is a tiny bit more disciplined at the moment than Elon Musk is being. Elon Musk is kind of Donald Trump 1.0 at the moment with his Twitter feed. The two of them can't even agree what social media platform to use, of course, because Donald Trump is predominantly trying to remote control the world through Truth Social. But he's doing it less, except with the exception of his comments about Canada and the departure of Justin Trudeau. But you're also absolutely right that the British government and other governments are having to respond in a policy sense to what Elon Musk is doing. And at the moment, there are two different discussions, knock-on discussions from that are being prompted by what we're seeing. The first is a discussion that Lucy Powell, the Commons leader, revived on Sunday night about whether or not there should be a crackdown on foreign donations, as there's this spectre of Elon Musk giving to Reform UK via one of his UK subsidiaries. She said that there is basically an elections bill coming, which will probably come next year, and the government is considering maybe clamping down further on foreign donations. That will be incredibly toxic if they do that, shutting the door after the horse has bolted, no doubt, in terms of a Reform donation. But also there are many overseas individuals who've given to other UK parties through this manner. And then the other discussion that's going on, and this is happening in Europe, is whether or not there needs to be more regulation of social media platforms and X, Twitter in particular, and whether or not there needs to be a clampdown on that. And I'm sure that discussion will come to the UK as well. So all over the place, politicians are looking whether or not they have to redraw the kind of playing field, and change the political playing field in response to the way America is doing politics right now. But is there any sense Donald Trump might end up reining in Elon Musk?
I mean, my take on that will be that Elon Musk is not someone that you can rein in. He's the world's richest man. He's bought the social media platform that he's doing it on, and he's very clearly a very unique individual who's not going to listen to people telling him to rein it in. What's more likely to happen, I would say, is that there's some sort of break between the two. I'm not saying that'll happen, but it certainly doesn't seem unlikely given Donald Trump's sort of past history of falling out with his closest advisors, and Elon Musk obviously a particularly tempestuous one. And there are some whispers from American journalists kicking around over the last few days, people who know these White House operation or incoming White House operation very well, that Donald Trump is not completely enamored with Elon Musk and how things have played out, not just on this specific issue, but generally over the last few months. And so you could see a world where Elon Musk very much breaks away from that administration, but that ain't going to stop him sitting on Twitter all day. And by the way, he does seem to be on it all day, shouting about whatever issue is top of his mind, which currently is British politics. And I just wanted to say, Sam, looking, having got up at 5:30 this morning to read Elon Musk's Twitter feed, and honestly, there is no fate worse than death in this. There's a lot of, as you say, stuff in there. He's having a go at Ed Davey overnight. He calls Keir Starmer evil. And tweeting about lots of other stuff as well. The most interesting thing that he's written on there, though, he's responding to a post talking about European politicians being looking to destroy Elon Musk's company, someone is claiming, and that luckily with Donald Trump now in office, that's not going to happen for the next 4 years, but they say Donald Trump won't be around forever. We need to launch populist revolts in many European countries to make free speech safe. And then someone else saying Donald Trump was a big win, but we need to liberate the rest of the West or they will keep coming for us, to which Elon Musk replies, yes. So what he's essentially doing there is endorsing an idea from people on the internet that Elon Musk, ought to be, in their minds, liberating the West in the way that Donald Trump has done in America to protect companies like X from politicians. And that might give you some sort of insight into why Elon Musk now seems so interested in European politics, why he, as you say, he's sitting down with the German far right on Thursday, why he's supportive of people like Tommy Robinson in the UK. He appears to be endorsing this idea that he and his companies need the sort of revolutions that we've seen in America happening here in Europe as well.
Jack, there's just 2 minutes left. And I just wanted to use that to talk about the Tories in relation to all of this. In some senses, looking across all of the different Conservative responses, the fact that Kemi Badenoch, some would say shamelessly, after reform, did this, after Elon Musk weighed in, has jumped on the bandwagon of calling for a national inquiry. The Tories have actually found something to unite around, where they were all pretty much talking in the same way, or beating the drum for a national inquiry that they didn't seem to be interested in 6-9 months ago. But I think it's important also to draw out one division that I've picked up, and that has been playing out slightly in slow-mo, which is why we haven't focused on it over the last 4 or so days. There was a statement put out by Robert Jenrick, who is, of course, the Shadow Justice Secretary, over the weekend. Now, he was the defeated leadership contender who's in the last 2, so he's a big figure in politics. What he says matters in Tory circles, not least something he's still trying for the leadership. And he said that grooming gangs were the consequence of the arrival of alien cultures in the UK. Now, that has deeply worried some in the Conservative Party who think that it crosses a line. It's no longer blaming extremism or criminals, but actually attributes some of this behaviour as a consequence of a religion, Islam. And they think that that goes further than they are comfortable with. It's a distinction. The distinction between behaviour and religion is something that most MPs on the Tory side have previously observed. But there is further concern. Not only did Robert Jenrick say it, but when he was attacked by a former Tory advisor in Number 10, Kemi Badenoch basically gave him the green light and defended him on the grounds of free speech. And they worry where that is going to take the Tory party and where that's going to take the kind of public discourse if you have people effectively blaming religion for what happened.
We will leave it there. Have a wonderful day, everyone. We will be back on Wednesday morning, possibly to talk about Elon Musk. I said through gritted teeth. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Have a great day, Sam.
See you then.